Hello. Um, if you don't know, I'm Reverend Bill Booth, and I'm a minister here at Trinity Memorial United Church. So here's the place I want to go with today's reflection. It's around the reading of Jacob wrestling with a divine being the night before he goes off to seek reconciliation with his brother Esau. So Jacob moves away from his family and all his possessions, all his sheep and everything else, for a night of reflection, a night of being in prayer and commitment, connection with the divine. And he has this dream that's more than a dream in the way it's described in the text. He wrestles with a divine being throughout the night. And as the morning light starts to break, the being, which we don't sure if is an angel or God, wishes to be released. But Jacob, in his determination, holds on. So the divine being, or God, touches Jacob's hip and dislocates it, right? Puts it out in some way. And give Jacob a blessing. So what we have from this story is a wrestling with a situation, a struggling with his life, right? It's very metaphorical and a really powerful message. Here we are in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic social distancing thing, and I've talked about this so many times, but it's really the primary thing that's pushing us and driving us these days. And it's a great metaphor to understand that we are, in a sense, wrestling with our struggles through this pandemic. We are wrestling with the divine presence of God. It becomes a wrestling with the divine being or with God when we stop putting it around, it's all about me, and start thinking about what's it about completely, just as Jacob did when he steps away from his family and says, what's going on here? Jacob was seeking reconciliation with Esau. We, I think, as part of humanity, need to seek reconciliation with much more, with all of creation. Yes, I'd like to tie this all in with the idea of where we're at in our need for reconciliation with creation. Because, in fact, the COVID-19 thing is related to the harm and things happening in creation, in the environment. Pandemics are going to get more often as we do things like push to the edges of our food supply, so that some poor people are eating things that they might not have eaten before, or is in such volumes that it gets things into the human ecology, the human race, right? So people in China eating bats that they perhaps didn't eat before. I don't know. There's lots of theories about the source. That was the original one. There's other theories now that COVID-19 was around in the human population in the past, but now the conditions are ideal for there to be an outbreak and for it to run through our whole worldwide community. But the point I want to make about the metaphorical understanding of the wrestling, the struggle with the divine presence, is that this is not the time to waste this experience we're having of the pandemic, but to wrestle with it. What does it mean? How has it impacted our lives? What's its place within creation? What's our place within creation? And isn't this now the time to accept our failures, just as Jacob had to do as he comes before Esau humbly, asking for reconciliation, for forgiveness, so that he can get back what he's lost? And what he's lost is his place within the greater family, within the land. And isn't that what we've lost here? Our place within the family of creation? Our relationship with the animals, with the trees, with the rivers, with the mountains, with the grasses, with the flowers, with the wild berries? Isn't that what we've lost? And isn't that what we need reconciliation with? To be reconciled with the land? To reconcile with our brothers and sister animals? And our brother and sister human beings? for there to be a fair share of the resources of the earth, for there to be a share implementing of the justice system we've set up, which is just, but it isn't being applied fairly, both in the United States and here in Canada. In our just and wonderful and polite Canada, there are people targeted by the authorities, and habitually, not even realizing they're doing it, and at the same time we do it as well. We make judgments based on what people are dressed and how they appear, or the color of their skin, or how they speak. And even though we try hard not to, it's embedded into our way of human beings. And the way of Christ, the way of God, is to break those barriers down and open up our hearts full of love. So if someone arrives at our Zoom meeting and they're a man dressed like a woman, or a woman dressed like a man, or speaking in a funny voice, or behaving in a funny way that we're not quite comfortable with, we have to see them as children of God. See them as someone to be reconciled with, to love them. And here we are. Then let's get back to the COVID-19 pandemic thing. We are struggling through this, trying to find our way to safety and health and well-being. And it is a nighttime struggle waiting for the light of dawn to come. And we're going to come out of this with a limp, with a disjointed hip. But we'll come out of it whole and ready to change the world, to open up our lives to a new era, for reconciliation between peoples, to reconciliation between humanity and creation, to a restoration of the earth. This is my prayer, my hope, my plead. So each of us are part of that journey, and each of us have a role to proclaim the presence of a divine struggle that changes us and changes the world. Let it be so. Let's wrestle like Jacob, and let's reconcile like Esau. Amen.